All stand. Coronial Court now stands restored. Please be seated.
Standing, Mr. Bowe.
To attention, Your Honour. I understand. May I proceed?
Yes.
Thank you. Sergeant, my name is Bowe, and I appear for the Walker, Lane and Robertson families. Do you know who they are in the context of this inquest?
I do.
Okay. I have 3 issues I want to pursue. I don't expect it to take very long, but there are some matters I wish to clarify in some of the questions that Dr. Dwyer asked you first. Okay? Do you have with you the case note use of force in relation to the matter that you reviewed concerning, I think his name's Walker, Christopher Walker? Christopher Walker, the one involving Constables Rolfe and Sykes. Did I hear you say earlier that you had listened to Constable Sykes' evidence yesterday?
I heard some, not very much.
In the context of this incident, did you hear him explain that one of the reasons he thought the force used was appropriate was that there was some real-time information being given to him by comms that there was a person who felt they were at danger of a man with a knife or something to that effect?
I believe there was someone in the bathroom on the phone. Is that correct?
I'm asking you, do you recall Constable Sykes' evidence on this?
Oh, no.
Okay. My recollection is that one of the reasons why he thought that there was appropriate immediate force necessary was that the information was being relayed to him as they drove there, and that there was a man with a knife. There was a man scared of being hurt with a knife, and Sykes referred to things like he could have been murdered and things like that. Do you understand the concept?
Yeah.
When you reviewed it as part of your function, did you focus on the entry that made it clear that the information that was available was that the complainant had locked himself in the bathroom?
And I'll just have a read if you don't mind.
See, it's in the first line.
And that's what I've written.
I don't know who writes these things, but under the heading Use of Force Incident, Narrative of Incident, you have the names of the officers on the first page. Sergeant, on the first page.
Oh, I think that's the wrong one.
It's not the right one.
Oh, no, I haven't.
You've got it? And you'll see the heading Use of Force Incident, Narrative of Incident. Do you see the heading?
What page are we on?
First page.
Oh, sorry.
First substantive
Yep.
entry. You'll see Use of Force Incident, Narrative of Incident. Do you see that?
Yes.
And you'll see a list of the names of the people attending.
Yes.
And then it says they attended 43 Van Senden, etc. The complainant locked himself in the bathroom. Do you see that?
Yes.
And that's a narrative that you've written or something you've been told?
No, the use of force, Your Honour, one of the people involved will do the use of force report. They'll bring it up,
Right.
and they'll outline that. Then to get it to me, they will task it, or they will then create a task, and then I will look at the and that brings up the use of force.
Okay, so those words, the complainant locked himself in the bathroom, is something that had been reported by one of the people who were involved in that incident. Is that correct?
I imagine, yes. You can also get, well, we haven't got it here, the CAD report, which is as the comms people are writing, it comes out in real time what is being reported to them on the phone, whether it's the call taker or the dispatcher.
All right. I'm being too diffuse in my question. What I'm trying to get to is this. Do you not think that that is a fact that goes to the urgency of entry or the force used upon entry, when in fact the putative victim is in fact safely locked in a bathroom?
If he's locked in the bathroom, it's not a safe room. You can break down the door.
Sure.
I think that's what you're saying. If he's in the bathroom, is he safe reasonably? But it's quite easy to break a door.
What I'm saying, it's different to the idea that police are attending because man with knife in house with putative victim. It's slightly different, is it not, in terms of the imminence of the threat, that the complainant has informed police that he's actually locked in the bathroom.
But from my point of view, I would say he's not entirely safe.
I understand. All right. Can I just go to, I'm only going to take you to one of the text issues that you've been examined about, and may I just make it clear for those who might be keen to get up, I'm not going to be addressing you on the inappropriateness or otherwise of the language used in the text messages.
Yeah.
I just want to interrogate with half a dozen questions to get precisely what in fact we can find out, that is, this court can find out, of what had occurred such that the words you used in that text. Do you understand?
Okay.
Okay. So the text concerning the 3 September 2019 text about, sorry about the stress exchange, the text exchange.
Sorry, what page are we on?
The sorry about the stress caused by losing your
okay,
shit.
yeah.
You know that exchange? All right. So I want to put to you 4 propositions about what the text from you objectively communicated. Okay? Sergeant? I'm just going to raise them each with you and you can adopt them or respond as you wish.
Okay.
First, in your text, you were apologising for having done something that you thought had caused Constable Rolfe stress, correct?
Correct.
Second, whatever you did was a result of you losing your shit whilst performing your duties as a police officer, correct?
Correct.
Third, you explained that you did whatever you did because you had enough, because this was the second person to press my button that night, correct?
Correct.
And fourth, you were commending Constable Rolfe for having, quote, sorted it well. That is, he had done something that you saw or heard that had somehow fixed what you had done, correct?
Correct.
Now, in your answers yesterday, you were reluctant to go into detail, and we've addressed that issue and you've given a bit more detail today. I just want to get to the fact that at transcript 2390 yesterday, the sequence that you gave as to your recollection was that you had tackled this person after pursuing him and that the two of you had crashed into some sort of structure, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Today, you reversed the order and suggested that he had crashed into the shed and then you had grabbed him.
Yeah, well, I think yeah.
Which is the correct recollection?
Well, it's kind of the same. He's running, he's crashed, I'm running, I've gone straight into them.
I know that's what you said today.
Yeah.
I can read to you word for word what you said yesterday.
Yeah.
But what you said yesterday was that your recollection was you tackled him because you were in pursuit and that you both crashed into the shed.
Yeah.
There's a slight difference. It may not be of great moment.
Yeah.
Which one was it?
Bit of both, in that the tackle was probably not like a rugby tackle or something like
I'm
that.
not interested in the type of tackle.
Okay,
Which order did it go? What was the sequence of the two physical interactions?
We're running, I've grabbed him, we've gone into the, whatever it was.
So you've tackled him first?
Yeah, I grabbed him, tackled him.
Okay. Now, we understand now that A, he was not charged, correct?
Correct.
And B, we have no means of capturing or seeing the body-worn video that was taken by Rolfe, Constable Rolfe.
Correct.
Just one question about that mechanism of storage and recharging. Is it the case that unless you place the camera into the charging device, there is no automatic download? Is that correct?
I think you can pick it up from phones or iPads.
Yes.
But I think it downloads when you put it in the charging dock.
The way these things work is well known to those who wear them, correct?
I imagine, yes.
You know how it functions.
Yeah, not terribly technical way, but
No,
yeah.
it doesn't have to
You
be
put it in the
technical.
dock and it downloads.
Sergeant, I'd imagine if you believed it captured something that was very important in your interests, you would make sure, you would do what is necessary to make sure it's preserved, correct?
Yeah, if you go back to the station earlier in the day, you may put it in the dock. Otherwise, at the end of your shift, you would just dock it.
And if you have a suspicion that what is captured may not be in your best interest, there are ways in which you can avoid it being viewed or preserved. You would know how to do that.
Know how to prevent it being viewed?
Yeah, in terms of the steps you take. See, for example, it may well be if there is no charge or report or incident file, you know that if it's not saved by an active step, that in 12 months' time it's lost forever.
Yeah. Yeah, but then you wouldn't be able to use your camera again.
Well, that may be so, but you could always say, I need another camera.
Yeah. I guess
Anyway,
you could.
the one issue that I want to understand about this is that your answer, as I understood it, in terms of what might have been captured, was that he might have been shouting out to cover up what you were shouting out.
I think that was it.
That was the answer you were giving.
Yeah.
May I suggest to you that there's a bit of a disconnect with that explanation, with the way in which he's described what he may be able to do. That is, if you face the camera away, we're not talking about audio, are we?
No.
We're talking about what is captured visually.
Yes, correct.
So what would facing the camera away do to permit him shouting something that concealed the audio?
Nothing?
So your explanation doesn't actually explain what in fact he was saying he was always ready to do. Do you agree with that?
Can you say it again?
Your explanation to Dr. Dwyer
Yeah.
of what you thought he might have been doing
Yeah.
to conceal whatever you were doing,
Yeah.
namely shouting at this person,
Yeah.
was about the audio caption, correct?
Correct.
Whereas his explanation is, I'm always ready to make my camera face the other way and be a dramatic cunt for the film.
Yeah.
Does it not suggest to you that it's what's being captured video, not audio? Facing the camera away does not lessen the capturing of audio.
No.
So your explanation doesn't bear out, does it, as to what you thought he was talking about?
No.
Do you accept that?
Yeah, well, it didn't make sense to me either.
Well, I'm suggesting your explanation doesn't make sense here, unless what he was doing was making sure whatever you were physically doing
Yeah.
was not caught.
No.
All right? Now, why would you be so concerned about verbally abusing somebody that you were so stressed about it?
It's out of character.
But this is a person who's not made a complaint.
Yeah.
You didn't even arrest.
Yeah.
You've seen the other video shown today by Dr. Dwyer where Kirstenfeld is absolutely verbally speaking to that person in your presence,
Yeah. Yeah.
using expletives and being quite, you would think, inappropriate in language and tone. See, I suggest to you that you're not giving a candid account of what you in fact did that was being avoided from being captured by film.
No, I think when we look at Constable Kirstenfeld's and you consider that mine a lot worse than his.
All right. Can I just get to the next point? You've referred to the concept of what this person did to warrant your verbal outrage was he pressed your button, right? We all know what that means, right? How could he have possibly done anything if all he had done was run away from you and you tackled him and brought him to a halt? What button was he pressing?
That was it, I think. Probably trying to talk to him, getting ignored, having to follow him, getting ignored, starting to run, having to run after him. That pressed my button.
Well, what pressed your button was that he had made you chase him. Is that correct?
I imagine.
What was that person was Indigenous, wasn't he? Visually to you.
I imagine, yes. Yeah.
And the person who had earlier pressed your button that night, was that person Indigenous?
I have no idea.
You have no idea because you don't remember the incident at all.
I don't know what the incident was.
But it happened the same night, didn't it?
Sorry?
It happened the same night, didn't it?
I don't know, Your Honour. I don't know what the other incident was. I can't remember it.
All right. Now, in your reply, in the reply from Constable Rolfe, can I just say there are also 4 things that he objectively communicated, and I ask you to comment on that. The first was that he indicated that there was, quote, literally no stress about it. That is, he sought to reassure you that he was not greatly affected by what you had done and what he had done, correct?
Correct.
Second, he said he is, quote, all for that shit, which could either be a reference to what you had done or what he had done, and may I suggest it was probably the latter.
Sorry, you could suggest what?
There are 2 inferences to be drawn from what he's referring to, that he is all for that shit.
Yep.
You see that?
Yep.
Could be a reference to he was all for what you had done,
Yep.
or all for what he had done. They're the 2 possible inferences.
No, well, I'm going to go with what I had done.
What you had done.
Yep.
He was all for berating a putative arrestee. Is that
An arrestee, yes.
not for all for that shit is doing what he had done, which is turn his camera away?
Sorry, you lost me there.
What your take is that it was the first of the 2 inferences. Is that correct?
So, say again?
Your take is that what he was referring to was what you had done, that is berate that person.
Correct.
Okay. Third, he was telling you that he had placed you under the same situation, quote, more than once before, unquote. You see that?
Yep.
You accept that that's what he's communicating?
Yep.
The same situation that he was referring to, did you understand it to be that you had been doing something which...
No, it's the other way around.
It's the other way around, yes.
I've done the same thing to you more than once before, suggests that he has behaved in front of you in a similar way to the way you behaved.
Correct. That's how it, that's how it reads.
Thank you. The 4th thing is, quote, he was always ready to turn his body-worn video away so as not to record what you had done and act in a dramatic way so as to distort what the recording or non-recording of what you had done. That's what he was communicating.
Correct.
Okay. All right, I'll move on from that. I just want to get to...
Is part of Constable Rolfe sorting it well, in your mind, included the fact that he had altered in some way the video recording so as to misrepresent what was occurring.
No, Your Honour, how I saw that, he's taken the chap away. That's all that I saw that.
But he's not saying that in the text, is it?
Yeah, it is. That's how I saw it.
Well, he doesn't use that I took the chap away.
No,
but
I've said my response was you sorted it well.
Did he sort it well by preventing you from assaulting this man? Restrained you from losing your shit?
No assault. I was just
All right. Can I just go to one issue about the 17 October text that we were last taken to by Dr. Dwyer, about the issue concerning the bicycle and the 301? You know the incident I'm talking about?
Yep, 21.
Was that person who made the complaint an Indigenous person as well?
Yes. Well, the person on the bicycle was
Yes.
was Indigenous.
On the bicycle and who had made the complaint, correct? Correct?
He would have talked to Naja, and Naja would have made the complaint.
Okay. Did you ever take up the suggestion? I heard yesterday that you'd been on stress leave for several months until 6 weeks ago.
Correct.
Are you still under any investigation for any matter?
For any matter? I don't believe so, no.
Now, I've got two more matters and I won't take long. The first is this. You mentioned in your statement a number of things. Can I just first clarify that in paragraph 24, you make the point of saying that you made and typed this statement by myself at Palmerston on the 19th of August, correct?
Correct.
And in preparing it, were you responding to 11 questions that had been sent to you by the investigators?
That's correct. Questions from Her Honour.
All right, from the Coronial staff?
Yeah, from.
Okay.
Someone gave them to me.
So I want to get into that because the question that Dr. Dwyer, if I may say, carefully took you through was the line in paragraph 22 about developing negative attitudes.
Sorry, am I supposed to have a copy or?
Well, you can have one if you want. Do you want the questions, do you?
Well, if you're talking to me about.
I've got a printout if you want to look at it. I'll get you to read it out so it's easier for you.
Have you got a
I haven't got a-
copy of your statement?
I haven't got a copy, Your Honour.
Okay, so we'd like a copy of your statement as well.
You want a copy of it? You get it on screen. No, you don't have another copy of it. Okay. I'll keep going whilst the document comes up. What I was getting into is this. In paragraph 22, when you use the language negative attitudes, you were responding to question 11 of that, or the highlighted question. What is that?
Sorry, 10.
10. Would you mind reading out that question, please? Reading out aloud so we can all hear.
You want me to read it?
Yes, please. I just don't have a copy in front of me.
Oh,
I
okay.
can give my copy.
Whether you think that you or members of the police force developed negative attitudes to Aboriginal members of the community that may have impact on your work.
Yes.
If so, whether you think additional training or other supports would help.
Okay. What I want to focus upon is that question was driving on not just whether or not you had negative attitudes, but whether those negative attitudes may have impact on your work. You understood that to be
Yep.
the question.
Correct.
So when you answered that in paragraph 22 with, if I may say, startling candour, that you did have negative attitudes, you meant to say that you did hold negative attitudes which may impact upon your work. Is that fair?
Oh, thank you. I can't really say what I meant to say because what I said was obviously what I wrote. So I don't know. Maybe I.
Well, you were responding to that question, weren't you?
Yeah.
All right, I'll leave it at that for now.
Do you think that the negative attitudes that you've referred to impacted on the way you carried out your duties?
I think they must have. And I think I may have said yesterday just the continual day in, day out, every job, just the drunkenness, working on the posse, that was particularly hard. But it was, you did get worn down. And so that's...
So one of the things you've frankly admitted is, I don't know if it's because of your negative attitudes or being worn down, but you frankly admitted that you've used inappropriate language and a lot of swear words around the police station.
Yeah,
do you think that was as a response to negative attitudes that you'd developed?
I think more so worn down.
Okay.
If I look at myself as when I first started the police, I don't think I swore. I don't think I even, or maybe I drank, but not very much, and things like that.
So looking back now, if you've said that you did develop negative attitudes, how did that affect the way you carried out your duties?
Whether it's that you don't have a lot of empathy or sympathy to in the picking up of drunken people and things like that, and it's you again type thing, and it's you probably don't have. I have empathy with mental health, but not with drunkenness, if that makes sense.
May I ask this, Sergeant? I'm not going to have a debate with you about race theories and matters of racism. Do you understand? So I'm not going to call you to account on those things here. What I want to get to is the matter Her Honour was driving at, and you gave an answer with respect, which is fairly revealing. That is, you have a problem with these people that live in the communities that come into Alice and drink and behave badly, but you don't have a problem with people that might have mental health issues. Is that what you just said?
I have a soft spot for mental health.
What I want you to consider is this, because you make this distinction in paragraph 23, that you're looking at what they did from what they are. So you're removing the attribute of indigenousness for the issue that has worn you down, from which you have developed negative attitudes, by your experiences of what you see them doing. Is that a fair encapsulation of how you're trying to explain yourself?
Yeah, it's the actions that are being done as opposed to the people doing it.
I understand. But you understand that we have to view this in the context that almost 99% of the people you will be policing are in fact Indigenous. Do you understand?
Yeah.
That's how we're viewing your thoughts. Do you understand? So you're saying that you develop negative attitudes, bracket, about Indigenous people, brackets, who are behaving in a way that have worn you down and have affected the way in which you undertake police work. Is that fair?
The actions have worn me down, not
understand.
the
You've been confronted with their actions.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Now, the issue that I want to raise with you is you, in your answer to the second question, is whether or not any training would assist you. You deferred the responsibility to government agencies who are more responsible, I think you said yesterday, with health, education. These people have kids that don't go to school. Do you remember that answer?
Yeah. I don't think I deferred, I didn't defer my role, because I'm still going to do my role. But I think there are other people who should step up.
See,
and sorry.
Sorry, you keep going. The issue that's arising in your examination is that besides what you have said in your statement, and besides what you have said and tolerated in text exchanges, is that there's conduct that we've seen of yours, policing conduct, not just what you do in your engagement, but what you review about what others are doing, which may be the subject of submissions on which we may say that you have failed in your duties. Do you understand? Dr. Dwyer was putting you, not verbally him, but she was putting those issues to you to fairly respond to. Do you understand? And one of the things that you said at the beginning of your statement was that there had been fairly limited cross-cultural information given to you within the police service.
Whereabouts
you
are we?
mentioned some in paragraph 18. You talked about a travel to Jabiru and a talk being delivered by an Irish chap. Remember all that? And you would accept that that's fairly inadequate assistance to you to have understanding of the people who you will be policing almost 99% of the time. You would accept that as a proposition, wouldn't you?
I would go further, say fairly inadequate is woefully inadequate.
Yes. And so what we're here is we understand that the Commissioner is wanting to listen and be imaginative about how police officers conduct themselves in their policing. Okay? Now I want to take you to a document which is in part 12 of the brief, Beck. It's 12-4 and to page 56. I think, thank you so much. You'll see up the top there, and I'll give you the context of this document in a moment if you need it. You'll see there that there's a heading, there's session time 5 minutes, the subject matter, death, sorry business, participant guide, etc. Do you see that?
Yep.
And you'll see, and you can just read it to yourself, the information there being given about the concept of people passing away in the community, and what sorry business can amount to. And over the next page, well, wait till you finish that page.
Yep.
You've read that page. Have you ever read that sort of information ever before?
No. No. I remember at Papunya, attending Papunya, and there was a death, and I was quite concerned because I didn't know what to do
Right.
in
Now-
regard to cultural.
Okay. Thank you for that, candour. Are you saying you've never read that document at all, correct?
never.
And you've never been given information of that kind before, correct?
No, I don't know where you said you got that. It's probably there for me to get. But I've
I'll get to that
never
in a
read
minute.
it.
I just
Yeah,
want to be clear about what you didn't have.
Okay, yeah.
One, you've never read that document, and two, you've never been given that sort of information, correct?
Correct.
And I'm just for the record, it's the Policing Between Cultures document produced by the Northern Territory Police Force. I'm told by the Council Assisting Team that this is the version as of 11 May 2016. Do you understand?
This was?
Yes.
Yep.
Now, the next page, Beck, if I could just go to it briefly, you'll see how there is information there about observations made by those who wrote this about the way in which Indigenous people may mourn and how it may or may not be the same as how non-Aboriginal people may choose to mourn. Do you see that?
Yep.
You've never seen anything like that before?
No, probably, I don't know if the correct term is learning out in the field.
Yeah, well,
but
learning out on the field often,
But no, I haven't read this.
the evidence we've heard is sometimes that when there's funerals, they might riot because they're really loud and they carry on. That's what you understand it?
No, I've been at funerals and sorry, well, not at, but around and heard the wailing and that people sitting in sorry camps and
All right.
sometimes going and sitting with them and
Right. When you answered the question in paragraph 22 that you didn't need to learn anymore, do you want to revise that thought? Because do you not think that having some accurate information, not just simply what's in that police manual, some accurate information of cultural issues in the communities that you police is something that would greatly benefit in affecting your perspective on these people with whom you've developed negative attitudes?
yeah, I think you've gone a lot deeper than I did in my response. I think I'm all for further education, but it's just the drunk people in town.
I see. All right.
Like
Drunk Aboriginal people in town.
Well, it's the drunk. If I don't care if
Sorry?
they're drunk, anyone. But yeah, there's a lot of drunken Aboriginal people in town.
Yeah. See, when you questions were asked of you fairly by Dr. Dwyer yesterday, and I think Her Honour, that sometimes there may be a connection between alcoholism and traumas.
Yeah,
You have sympathy or empathy with people with mental illnesses
Correct,
or a soft
yeah.
spot. Could you not even conceive the possibility that some of the behaviour that you found so difficult is the product of significant mental health and trauma issues.
Yeah, I will, and you hear a lot of people, things have happened in their life and they start drinking, and so I see that.
See, it's one thing.
I'm not sure if that's where you're coming from,
No,
but I see that, and some people turn to alcohol and some people turn to other things, and
I'm just driving at that answer to the question
Yeah.
that you thought no further help from training would help you. Surely you concede now from what we've been talking about that.
I think, without being
just finish
flippant,
the
that was
question.
maybe.
May I just finish the question?
Sorry.
May I finish the question? Which
Oh,
is-
sorry. I thought you'd finished.
No, from what we've been talking about,
Yeah.
do you not think there's a lot more for you to understand about the people you are policing, for you to undertake those duties in an appropriate way, mindful of the circumstances in which they find themselves being policed?
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because one of the unfortunate inferences from some of the text messages, and that's a submission others may make, is that you've actually developed not just a negative attitude, but rather you think lesser of them because of their behaviour.
Of the drunk people.
Well, the people who are drunk, yes. You think lesser of them. You've developed a negative view of them, and you think
Yep.
lesser of them because of their behaviour.
I think that's probably the case. I guess I get sick of
Because you
just drunk
add-
people.
Sorry, keep going.
Sorry, just sick of drunk people.
Yes. See, then you added in your answers, quote, "It is wrong to consider people like Walker first and foremost and above all else Indigenous." Do you see that in your statement?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it. What number?
Just lost my copy, but I think it's in the last paragraph, 23. Finally, I would say that it is wrong to consider people like Walker first and foremost and above all else Indigenous.
Yep.
What do you mean by that?
I think to be held accountable for one's actions and not to be, and I'm not going to articulate it well, to be held accountable for the thing you did or the things you have done, as opposed to being considered, despite the fact of being Aboriginal or being European or what have you, or Europe, whatever, that you're considered for what you've done.
It's just that the language you use, which you typed yourself, is that it is wrong to consider people. So you're actually making a positive assessment of having a primary regard to the fact that he's Indigenous in the way in which he was policed.
No, I think where I was coming from there, Your Honour, is just holding people to account for their actions. I said I wasn't going to articulate it well, but as opposed to, you know, these are Indigenous people, or these are what have you. It's like, this is an offender because he's done this, or these drunk people, or they're PC because they're drunk, and that's kind of where I was coming at there.
All right. I'll just be quick because there's only 3 more questions I want to get to. But one thing I noticed in your statement is at no time do you use the word Kumanjayi in the statement. Rather, you refer to him as Arnold Walker or Walker. Now, was that a considered
I think
decision
that's,
not to refer to Kumanjayi?
no, I think that's just the way, like, did I refer to him as Kumanjayi at the start? Usually I refer to people just as their surnames.
Well, you've read in that passage you read from the manual that the name of the deceased is now not to be used after the passing. You saw that, didn't you?
Yeah, I saw that, yes.
You see
yes.
that as being something recognised by police as an important mark of respect.
Yeah.
But that's something you didn't show in your statement.
No, I didn't. No.
You say you did that unwittingly.
I thought initially it was, yeah, but
Okay, 3 final questions. Insofar as the impact on your policing work, did you start doing things that you have regretted, such as do and say things that do not reflect who in fact you are as a person and as a father?
Sorry, is that your question, or
My
was that one?
question, my
Oh, sorry.
Sure.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. This is difficult for both of us, I'm sure. You made a reference to earlier saying that the person you started in the service in Territory is not the person you are now seeing being revealed, or something like that. You remember
That I've changed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you think that whatever the reason for this negative impact, that you have started to do things that you have regretted? I think you've conceded that a couple of times today and yesterday. Do you agree with that?
Say that bit
You've
again.
regretted sending some of those texts, correct?
Yes.
You've regretted saying some things, correct?
I did.
You've regretted not doing things that you should have done, correct?
Correct.
Now, in light of these negative attitudes, and given the conclusions that you've come to in today's evidence, and given that most of the people you will police in the future are going to be Indigenous people who are going to be behaving in a way that you found difficult, do you not think it's time for you to make a decision to stop undertaking this sort of work?
Well, object
No.
to that, Your Honour, that's just an unnecessary question.
Why is that unnecessary?
Why is it relevant?
Well, we're going forward at looking at making sure that the police who are servicing these communities have the right attitudes, the right respect, the right behaviour in relation to policing. And part of it has been, with respect to this witness's evidence, is he came here because of the money, which is fair. We all do that. Having experienced these matters and having been shown what he has been doing, is it not time for individual police officers to reflect on whether or not they should be doing this sort of work? If they're not willing to be further trained, if they're not willing to be educated about how the local community wish to be policed.
Are you willing to receive further training?
I think I said yesterday I hadn't heard of the Coniston massacre, and it was brought up in here. So Google's not a particularly good search, or research. But I went in there, and so I'm always willing.
I'm going to allow the question, Mr. Bowen.
Thank you. Do you not think that, given all we've heard, what you've done and said, and your reflections, and given, if I may say, a degree of intransigence in your position, is it not perhaps time for you to reconsider whether you should be doing policing in the Territory?
No.
No. Thank you, Your Honour. I have no further questions.
Mr. Mullins.
One question, Your Honour. My name is Mullins.
Good afternoon.
I appear on behalf of the Brown family. I just have one question. Do you think that your lack of empathy toward Indigenous people who are intoxicated spills over to other Indigenous people who may not be intoxicated?
No, I don't think it does.
And then a second question, how do you distinguish between the two from a...
Between a drunk person and a non-drunk person.
Well, when you're approaching a group of people where some might be drunk and some might not be drunk, how do you distinguish between them?
You find out pretty quickly.
Yeah. So, thank you, Honour.
Sergeant, my name's SP, I appear on behalf of Naja. You would question about some comments and some advice or some consoling of your friend and your junior officer, Mr. Rolfe, his application for the TRG, where your text messages have been read out referring to blacks, chicks, gays, lazy fucks, and then Zach. And just want to clarify some of your answers or some of that discussion. You said something along the lines of people should be given those positions or promotions based on merit. You didn't think prioritising diversity was had any merit. Was that your answer?
I believe so.
Just perhaps some other issues that may be, we'll see if you agree with whether these things are go to someone's merit as a police officer, and perhaps leadership given you've agreed you failed in leadership on a number of occasions, but following process, that would be something worthy of merit and important in a leadership role or a promotion.
Exactly, true.
Compassion and insight.
Compassion
Yes.
for who?
Well, for the people you work with and
The policeman or
for the community.
community? Yep, yeah.
And
Compassion,
colleagues, yes.
compassion, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Insight into the where you're working and the people you work with.
Correct, yeah.
You work with. Integrity in your evidence, collating evidence and maintaining that evidence.
Yeah,
Being thorough.
being thorough, yeah.
Having an adequate memory and recollection. That's important when you give evidence, isn't it? Which as an officer you often have to do. Give evidence in court and have a good recollection of what's happened and events.
Through good note taking and collection of evidence and yeah. Sorry, I was a bit confused about the memory.
Right, and a lot of things.
Yeah.
Giving a recollection because you know we've got notes and text messages and you
Yep.
haven't remembered a lot of that. There's a lot of things you haven't remembered today and yesterday. Remembering to turn your body-worn footage on, that's important.
I've actually got in trouble for that quite a few times.
So something of merit and leadership and being worthy of promotion, that would include having a good memory and ability to recall things accurately.
Yeah, a good memory's good.
The Irish chap, what did he teach you? Is there anything that
I don't know. I did say I didn't want to run him down because he might have said some good stuff,
you don't remember it?
but I
None
don't.
of it stuck in your head.
No, it was 10 years ago.
You didn't learn about massacres, Coniston massacre, you've only just recently learned about that.
No, that was only recently through the Coronial that I went and had a look to see what it was.
Until today you haven't really had much of an understanding about things like sorry business and cultural practices around death?
No, I'd say incorrect. My time in communities I've gone, and I said not very long ago that I've sat in at Sorry Camp and like I've heard the wailing and obviously dealing with the death of Aboriginal folk out in communities and the emotion and the wailing and
Right. When it comes to having an insight into your time in Kintor, you couldn't really understand why people had all these houses and were sleeping outside.
it was cooler. Yeah.
You viewed the place as filthy.
When I first got there, I thought it was.
Blacks, chicks, gays, etc. Do you think maybe black people, Aboriginal people, might have a bit more insight into some of the historical things, such as the Coniston massacre?
Well, yeah, we were talking about the TRG though, that like it was joke-ish, inappropriate. I'll accept that now, and I don't think I did before. But
I'm not asking for an excuse about the content. I'm just asking your opinion on whether you think black or Aboriginal people might have some more insight into some of the things that you didn't seem to remember from the Irish chap 10 years ago.
well, if Aboriginal chap was going for the TRG and he met the qualifying standards and like I struggle there. I know what you mean, but like putting the two together is.
I mean, essentially, you were asked a number of questions yesterday. Your insights into Aboriginal people seem to consist of they're filthy, including.
I don't think I ever said Aboriginal people are filthy. Pretty sure I never said that.
You asked some insights into things like poverty, and you quickly jumped on, well, I don't think poverty's an issue. Look at the green cans. It's all about alcohol. It's all about And I'll quote you said yesterday, they've all got kids, their kids aren't going to school. So
That was the folk coming into town for the purposes of drinking
some
alcohol.
of your insights are Aboriginal people are filthy, alcoholic.
No, I never said Aboriginal people are filthy.
They come from filthy communities like Kim.
No, the Kento, it was full, there was rubbish everywhere.
Any compassion in any of those comments?
Which
What's around
which comments?
Goes towards his comments, Your Honour, about leadership and merit, and that's entirely relevant to the culture moving forward of the police force and concerns about systemic racism.
I don't know that his reflection on whether his answers show compassion. I'm going to assist him, Mr. Essex.
Right. I won't push it, Your Honour. Some other things that are important in your role as a sergeant, and we've heard evidence of perhaps, to generalise it, some concerns about your practices and your discussions about Mr. Rolf's practices around proper integrity of evidence, including body-worn footage and remembering to turn it on, and joking about potentially fabricating or manipulating the use of them by turning away or not having them aimed in the proper direction, etc. Do you think that's, again, reflecting on your comments of failed leadership, do you think that those are concerning aspects?
Well, I object to that. That's a matter for submission and others to form opinions on. He's given evidence ad nauseam on these matters.
I think he's already conceded
Yes.
it's a failure on his part.
Um,
That would be fair enough, wouldn't it, Sergeant? You've
Oh,
conceded
sorry, ma'am.
that's a failing on your part in relation to body-worn video and leadership in relation to body-worn video?
I do. I think I said that earlier. Sorry.
Just perhaps some observations on how we can improve that, the use of body-worn footage. Would it be beneficial if there was some way of having body-worn footage not able to be turned on and off and simply being able to be recorded consistently throughout a shift?
It would be until the officer went to the toilet or had a private conversation.
Right.
I see what you mean, but if they're in the station and the muster room is their area where they can talk.
Perhaps one more question on that. Do you think it would be beneficial to have some sort of 360-degree view, perhaps cameras on your back as well?
I don't know. Is that a proper question or?
Yes, it is. We've heard concerns about people turning away.
Oh, I don't know.
No. You can ask some questions about, I think this was in October, some text messages that referred to yourself and Mr. Rolfe commenting on taking stress leave, etc., and you found it frustrating that you think some people perhaps fake mental illness to get time off.
No, I said not necessarily mental illness. I said some injuries, and I don't think it's widespread, but I think people have done it.
Right. Including faking stress leave in general, being stressed or not being able to cope.
I don't know.
You don't recall saying something along those lines?
This morning, I don't know. If it's there, then I said it.
All right. Issues of showing leadership. Rather than joking about these things, were you aware that Mr. Rolfe, in fact, had or was taking aggressive medication, or heard some evidence of that?
No.
You're aware that we've heard some evidence that he was talking to other colleagues about perhaps some things going on in his head for want of...
No. I heard that yesterday when I was watching.
So as far as your leadership as one of his superiors, do you think you've let him down in that regard, and perhaps he didn't feel able to come to you and discuss any potential issues going on in his head or his need to use antidepressants, etc.?
Maybe I did. Maybe I wasn't as open as I should have been. But
it's not about being open.
Well, he has to feel that he can come to me, that he has the confidence to come to me, that I'm the right person to come to.
Right.
Maybe he went to someone else. I don't.
If you're joking about people that fake illnesses or injuries, he's not going to feel confident to come to you about those sort of things, is he?
He was the person that was joking with me about it.
You didn't suggest that he should take those things seriously.
No, not in the text exchange.
That was the 17th of October, which was less than a month before he had to...
We know the dates.
Yeah. You've given some evidence about... You've seen some footage of issues involving use of force, Sergeant.
Sorry, say again?
Given evidence observing some use of force.
The video,
Yes.
Yeah.
You prove people's use of force as a sergeant.
Correct, yeah.
You prove their case notes, sorry. Just some other insights. The incident involving, I believe it was Christopher Walker. You stand by the fact that when when Constable Rolfe entered that room, the person in the footage didn't comply, I think you said?
Didn't comply, what, sorry?
Didn't comply to get on the ground?
Yeah.
Right. You described, I think you were describing some training, you using the word shouting, dominating and disorientating.
Correct.
Is that part of your training as a way of entering?
I think they may have changed it now. I'm not a tactical operator or anything like that, but there are different situations, Your Honour, where you would go in as quietly as you can, or where you would go in as quickly and dynamically as you can, and that's the footage that we saw before. That was that situation there, but it's not one fits all.
Right. Some alternatives, and I'm not just specifically talking about that incident, but alternative uses of force which you haven't discussed would include things like the use of tasers or capsicum spray, pepper spray. If someone has cognitive issues, mental health issues, drug psychosis, they're not necessarily going to comply straight away, are they? In a situation where force may be required?
No, that's correct.
Has your training given you any insights into that, about how to deal with people with any other sort of cognitive issues or issues that may affect their response?
No, a little bit tricky. Like if someone who's cognitively impaired is standing with a knife, threatening, you're going to deal with that person in exactly the same way. You're going to subdue that person.
Right. You'd shoot them.
Sorry?
You'd shoot them.
I said subdue.
Well, you're asked to give consideration and any recommendations to Her Honour.
Yeah.
The question was any recommendations they might make with respect to preventing future deaths. And I think you've given your answer, if you've got it in front of you, in paragraph 23, stating that if someone attacks, seriously assaults or attempts to stab a member of the police, the chances of getting shot are probable and not just possible.
Yep, that's what I wrote.
That includes, what did you say, includes if someone has cognitive issues or any other issues that may affect their response, you'd still...
If someone with cognitive impairment is stabbing someone, and this is just me, and the fact that they're cognitively impaired doesn't come into it.
Right.
And if I have to shoot that person to protect that person, then the fact that they're cognitively impaired doesn't come into it.
If you had a bit more time, I'm not talking about the Christopher Walker, if you had time and you had some awareness of that, would it change the way you might respond to that person?
Is he still stabbing it?
If you had concerns that they may potentially pick up a weapon, or in the case of Kumanjayi Walker,
There's each situation is different, and
Right.
if that there's not an imminent threat
When
to,
you've got time to plan is the question just...
well, that would be in your planning. If you're being front, are you talking about me being frontline GDs, or are you talking about? Sorry.
Just in general, if you have time to plan an
Is
arrest.
that a factor that you would take into
There-
account in determining how to deal with an
If you had time, Your Honour, and I think someone brought up and said SMEAC, and that's situation, mission, action. Just what the plan. You can do it in your head. You can do it, write it on the bonnet of a car.
Right,
If you had time, you would take in as much as you can.
right. Would that include talking to people? If you had opportunities?
So, yeah, the intel gathering, you mean?
No,
Yep.
Talking to someone who's aggressive and hostile.
Well, it depends what they're doing. Like if it's me and you can't get to me because there's desks in the way, I'd be talking to you.
Right. You've given evidence that you're not really interested, or community policing, remote policing is not something for you.
No. I did 18 months all up, and I think I would say I loved just about all of it. But no, it's not for me. I think there's some people who choose to go bush and they love bush. There's some people who don't want to go, and or go remote. Sorry.
You would understand that community policing is something that other officers have described in this process, in this inquest, as a lot about building relationships and trust with people in the community.
Correct. Yep.
Do you think that will also help when you're confronted with people that may be acting hostile?
If you've got the time, you would try to build up that trust. I'm not quite sure how working in a community and having someone maybe thinking about attacking you or something, I'm not sure.
Do you think that is perhaps why it's important, or maybe it's valued by other members of the police force as the valued quality to learn community policing before going into, the dangerous situation of working for the TRG?
Can you say that again?
Yeah, I don't really think it's in his area of
I'm referring to his comments, Your Honour, but I can
Sure.
withdraw that.
very little time left.
Yes, Your Honour. Other than the fact that it's highly probable that people will get shot when confronting police officers with a knife or trying to stab them, is there any other insights you'd like to share? That's just my final question.
No, it was, do I have any suggestions? And sometimes I think people are confused as to what police do or what they can do. That maybe, and not talking Aboriginal, but talking all across Australia, all different walks of life. And if you attack a policeman, if you attack anyone and there's a policeman there, that the chances are you could get shot. That you can't attack a policeman if that policeman is fearing for his or her life.
it's more, essentially, as it says in your statement, you're suggesting it's more than just a chant, but it's quite probable.
If you attack a policeman with a knife or with a whatever, pair of scissors, that the chances are probable that you'll get shot.
And you open, Sergeant, to learning other safer ways of dealing with people to avoid the need to probably shoot them?
Well, I object to this. I don't think the sergeant's been in a situation where he's shot somebody, and whether he's open to new ways of dealing with situations is completely irrelevant.
I'm not going
I
to.
would draw the question, I have nothing further.
Yes. Mr. McMahon.
Thank you. Sergeant, my name is McMahon. I for the Parapuru Committee of which is a Justice Committee. Have you come across that while you've been watching this inquest?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just looking at your last answer, or listening to your last answer, and you said that some people can be confused about what police do. There's no confusion, is there, that police have the power to, for instance, arrest a citizen, correct?
Correct.
To pin a citizen to the ground if necessary, correct?
If necessary.
There's no confusion that police have the power to lock people into paddy wagons like we've seen on the video, or to lock them in cells. There's no confusion about those powers, is there? Well understood. You agree with that?
Correct, yeah.
Police have the power to take people from their homes, put them in the police station, put them in a cell. There's no confusion about that.
No?
Pick them up off the street and deprive them of their freedom. There's no confusion about that.
Pick them up off the street for...
Arrest someone on the street and take them to the
Oh,
station.
for an offence, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no confusion that in certain circumstances, police have the power to use batons to strike a person, if that's necessary, correct?
If necessary, and
Yeah,
yeah.
there's no confusion about that, is there? There's no confusion that police have the power to use taser guns if they need to resolve a situation or a dangerous situation.
Well, there's no confusion with me, but I can't.
And in fact, as you well know, police, if necessary, also have the power to use lethal force to actually kill somebody if it's necessary in the circumstances that they're confronted with.
Correct.
You'd agree that these are unique and extraordinary powers which the community entrusts the police with?
Correct.
Do you agree that people who hold racist attitudes about Aboriginal people should not be given these powers to police Aboriginal people?
I would say yes, yeah.
You've been taken to a number of text messages, and I just want to switch from text to apps. Do you have apps on your phone?
Apps.
An app, A-double-P, not an app. It's on your phone application.
Yeah.
Social media app?
Yeah.
Were you communicating and during the year of 2019, were you communicating with Constable Rolf on an app?
Like,
So yes
text,
or no?
I don't know what you mean.
Sending messages, sending texts, sending pictures,
I don't know about pictures.
just texts.
Oh, I don't know. Just, yeah, sending texts, I think.
What was the app you were using?
I don't know. I don't know what it's called.
Pardon?
Hang on.
Yeah, have a look on your phone.
Messenger.
Messenger. Have other police looked at your phone to see what messages you've sent to Constable Rolf in the year 2019 on that app?
No, I think Constable Rolf's phone got looked at.
Pardon?
I think Constable Rolf's phone got looked at.
Between the arrest of Constable Rolf and now, have you deleted messages that you and he have exchanged from your phone?
No, they're all on there.
Between the arrest of Constable Rolf and now, have you deleted other messages that you've sent to other police on your phone?
No, I don't believe so.
And no police have seized your phone to have a look at it?
No.
Okay. When you spoke about the video yesterday that you were shown concerning an arrest on, is it called Anzac Hill?
Yes, yes.
And Zach, you're shown a video and you asked a lot of questions about your camera being on and off, and
Yeah.
you gave answers about the lights flashing and not
Yeah.
flashing and so on. And then, as I understood it, when you were shown the video and asked questions by counsel assisting, it seemed that at the end of that video there was a collection of people and vehicles in the dark, and that you seemed to say something to the effect that you're explaining that you had your body-worn video on.
Correct.
And Dr. Dwyer asked you some questions about that. Why did you do that?
Yeah.
Because it seems, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems that you had turned it on sometime shortly prior to that.
I don't know. We might have to look at it. I don't know what the period of time was.
But you agree that you were standing there with the vehicles and the people, your video camera, your body-worn video was on, and the Dr. I said, why did you do that, as in turn it on? And you said sometimes people come along and say things like it might be inappropriate at that time, so you just say cameras on. That's your evidence.
Yeah, I'll quite often say that.
So in circumstances where there's just been an arrest and a chase and quite a lot of drama, what is the point of telling people that the camera is on?
Probably because I just turned it on, or it had been on for however long. I don't know.
What is the point of telling other people that the camera is on?
Just so they're aware that it's been recorded.
Why does that matter?
Just so someone doesn't say something silly,
Like what? Like a racist comment?
like something silly. Just,
Well, there's nothing wrong with saying something silly. Bananas are yellow and I hope you slip on one is a silly comment, but no one cares if it's on your body-worn video. Isn't it the case that you're worried that someone will stand there and say something which is damaging to your fellow officers?
or stupid, maybe.
What's the point of saying something stupid? It doesn't matter if something stupid is said on a body-worn video. Isn't the fact that you're concerned that someone will say something which amounts to a racist comment about the incident which has just occurred? And that's why you're warning people that the body-worn video is on. Isn't that what you were doing?
Your Honour, I would say me saying the camera's on is no different to the little sign over there that says we're recording.
Except the circumstances are that there's a bleeding Aboriginal man who's just been put in a paddy wagon. There's a group of police officers standing around. As we now know, there are subsequent issues about all the events which occurred at which you were present. And the circumstances were potentially disadvantageous to any police officer who had done something wrong if the wrong comments were made. Isn't that what you were concerned about?
No.
Were you concerned that someone might say something relevant to the fact that an Aboriginal man had just been bashed?
No.
Or police officers might collude about the events so that the story is straight.
Were you worried that something like that might be caught on body-worn video?
No, Your Honour.
Now, I'm going to ask you some questions about text and so on, but I'm not going to repeat the questions that have been asked already. You understand? I'm just going to build on some of that, and you and I and everyone else can just take it as a given that roughly what's been said has been understood.
Yep.
Right? But with the text messages that you've been taken to between you and Constable Rolfe, do you accept that when such messages are sent between you and Rolfe, that they are both private and that they're intended to remain private?
The expectation is, I believe, that they're private.
Yeah. And do you accept that the effect of keeping them private is to conceal their content from anybody else? It's obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, the private communications, yeah.
Yeah, the private communications. And as you well know, it's been put to you in a variety of ways that a number of those messages are in fact plainly racist. Do you accept that any of them are racist? I think you've already accepted that so far in your evidence.
One of mine, yes. correct.
Only one. That's the one about the woman who thinks she's an Aboriginal woman and she's doing a good impression because she's lying drunk in the dirt.
Yep,
You accept that's racist? Correct?
correct.
Do you accept that your actions on the job as a police officer can be influenced by that kind of racist messaging which passes between police officers who work together?
I don't know. I don't
don't know?
I don't know.
Do you accept that the way you think influences the way you act?
I'll accept that.
Yeah. And the message that you just referred to, you accept that it reveals an attitude, this is the one about the woman lying drunk. You accept that that reveals an attitude of contempt for Aboriginal people.
For drunken people.
Pardon?
For drunken people.
For drunken people. Sergeant, I don't want to rehash some of the evidence that's been painfully extracted, but the messages that we're talking about, who's the silly bitch? She thinks she's Aboriginal, she's lying in the dirt pissed. It's about a drunken Aboriginal person, and it's a statement, a series of statements revealing contempt for Aboriginal people.
For drunken Aboriginal people, the people that we deal with here in town.
So now we have an acceptance by you that it's contempt.
No, I was just saying it wasn't for Aboriginal people as a whole.
Who is the silly bitch? That comes from you. We'll ignore the misogyny in that. Answer. Fuck no, some white bitch who thinks she's Aboriginal. Rolf doesn't tell you that the person is lying in the ground pissed. You already know that from some other conversation because your answer is lying in the dirt pissed, doing a fucking good impression, and I'm inserting now an impression of being an Aboriginal. You're saying that she's lying in the dirt pissed and therefore looks like an Aboriginal. It's plain,
No.
and it's almost incredible that you would seek to deny it, that these expressions you've used there reveal contempt for Aboriginal people.
No,
Did you
I don't
go
think
to
they
your
do.
friends recently, after this text was made public, and say, I've said a terrible thing about drunken Aboriginal people, or did you say, I'm sorry for saying a terrible thing about Aboriginal people?
I imagine it was the drunken, and that's what we've discussed.
That's how you confined your tearful apology to your Aboriginal friends, was it? I'm sorry I spoke about drunken Aboriginal people this way. That's not true.
No, no.
You spoke to them and you apologised for speaking about Aboriginal
I
people.
said that was my text. Yep.
Do you accept that when you send such texts or you engage in communications where such racist texts go back and forth between police officers who work together, do you accept that by doing that you are now revealing what the workplace culture was at that time?
No, I don't believe so. I don't know. I would say no.
Do you accept that if messages are going back and forth, not one but several and then more than several, that the practice of doing this begins to reinforce the habit of sending racist messages to each other? It's pretty
Well-
obvious, isn't it?
Are you talking about my texts or
I'm talking about the practice of doing it.
my texts?
It's a
Look.
general question. Your texts are an example of what I'm talking about. That when people send text messages back and forth like
Yeah.
this, it becomes acceptable. One terrible text tells us something. For instance, a person might say something foul and vile and filled with venomous hatred. They might only say it once. It tells us something. But when there's a repeat of messages going back and forth, it tells us something else. It tells us there's a culture. You accept them.
If there's text, yes, but I'm talk like my phone. I've got the two that I sent. I think it's the two.
Did you say that again? I didn't.
I can't talk. I can't talk for everyone.
No, I'm asking you a general question. I'm asking you to apply your intelligence to the question.
If the texts are flowing,
Yes, that they reveal the culture.
of acceptance, yep.
Do you accept that you thought it was okay to send these texts, that it was safe to send these texts, like lying in the dirt, piss, doing a fucking good impression and so on? That you thought it was okay to send those texts because, firstly, there was privacy, you've already accepted that. And secondly, because you were working within a culture of impunity, that you thought you were safe from accountability for such texts.
No, I don't.
Do you accept that you thought you were safe from accountability for such texts?
By sending a text.
Sending racist texts. It's only 5 minutes ago in this court you spoke about the importance of accountability to Her Honour. You were talking about drunken Aboriginals who have gardens full of empty beer cans.
Yep.
You were talking about personal accountability. I'm asking you about your personal accountability.
I don't know. I'm stuck now. I'm sorry.
Do you accept that you sent such texts and never criticised Rolf who sent you similar texts because you did not think you would be accountable for such texts?
I don't think I ever thought, am I or am I not accountable? I think the assumption is, because it's a text, that who else is going to see it?
The assumption was that you were not accountable, correct?
I guess that's.
The assumption was that you enjoyed impunity for such texts, correct?
No,
That there would be no punishment for such texts. That was your assumption, correct?
No, I don't think I even thought that.
Do you accept that where there is a culture of a lack of accountability for such racist texts, that culture can infect every part of the job that the police are doing? That once you let in a culture of racism at some part of the job, it infects other parts of the job. Do you accept that?
I don't really know how to answer that. I could just say yes.
Do you accept that a lack of accountability for racist language quickly becomes a lack of accountability for racist action?
No, I couldn't say.
You're not denying that, are you?
No, I was just saying I couldn't say. I don't know.
That where there's more than one account, more than one racist text, where there's one, then two, then three, then more, and more people exchange such racist texts, do you accept that that can lead to a lack of accountability for racist action with those same people?
I'm not saying it's not true, but I don't know. I can't say.
Do you accept that it's easier to engage in racial acts if you're in the habit of using racist language?
I wouldn't know. I don't know.
In 2019, as is apparent from these text messages which you've been shown, there were racist texts bouncing around between various people with whom you worked. And you've been shown some of the texts.
We don't have the answer.
You've been shown some of the texts that you've sent in the last 2 days in your evidence. You understand that?
Sorry, something was happening. I wasn't listening.
He's just murmuring, don't worry about it. You accept that you've been shown some texts that you've sent?
Yes.
How many other texts in 2019, and I'm not talking about your whole life, I'm just talking about 2019, the year upon which you've no doubt reflected because of the events which lead us all into this room today. How many other texts of a racist nature did you send in that year?
I'd like to say none.
But that's not true. So,
Well, I don't know if it's true.
you don't know. So
I don't know if it's not true.
You may have sent more.
I may have sent less.
Well, Well, it might be none or more. You're not going to stand here and say, I didn't send any other racist.
Well, I don't know, and I don't know. I don't know what text I've sent. If you would say to me, have you sent a racist text, I would just say no. Not because I'm being deceptive or anything, because I just don't think I did. But then you may show me a text and you might say, hey, this is racist. But it might be a joke, it might be a picture of something, I don't know.
And then if shown it and cross-examined for an hour, so you might agree that it's racist. And then you join a long line of police who've come into this court. Every one of them, virtually everyone except one, has said, there are no other racist texts that I'm aware of. That's your answer too, is it?
Well, I don't know of any other. I've seen these ones, I don't know of any others.
Yeah. And in 2019, did you hear racist language around the police station or with the police with whom you worked?
No.
And that would join you with many other police except one who would come into this court to give evidence. Did you know that every police officer is coming to this court to give evidence about issues, and when they've been shown that text, every one of them has professed either shock or disappointment or dismay at seeing such texts?
I think, yeah,
You know
that they've shown shock and dismay.
Yeah. I mean, you've been following the case either in the media or by being in court, haven't you?
Yeah, I've watched on the pot, whatever it's called. Sure.
And just so we can be clear, is there any racist language that you've heard at the police station? As I understand it, you're saying there was no racist language that you heard at the police station or with your colleagues in the year 2019. Is that correct? Is that your evidence?
Yeah, I'll go with that.
And you're aware of no other racist text that you sent or received in that year, except the ones that have been proven to you as being sent or received in this court. Is that your evidence?
Yep, correct.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
It's my turn.
I'm not sure, is that...
No questions for me, Ron.
I'll be fair.
Mr. Watson.
Thank you, Ron. I'll be fairly brief, Sergeant Kirby. Just going back to the unfortunate text exchange you had with Constable Rolfe, where you made the comment lying in the dirt pissed. Do you remember where you were when you exchanged those text messages?
No idea.
Well, I'm assuming you're on duty.
I'm thinking maybe I was listening to the radio, but I don't know.
Okay. The statement you made in this matter was, as we know, made on the 19th of August. You recall the circumstances in which you were asked to provide that statement?
Where I was, or
You said you were on sick leave at the time. I assume you were spending most of your time at home.
at home, correct?
And you recall how you were asked to provide the statement?
Someone came to give me a summons, Your Honour. I didn't take it very well.
Was that on the 16th of August? 2 days before?
Thereabouts, yeah, correct.
3 days. And how were you feeling at that time? You're on sick leave. How were you doing in terms of your state of well-being?
I think I was preparing to come back to work. Well, trying to get ready to come back to work.
Right. And you received the email from Detective Superintendent Lee Morgan. I think it was I assume that's in evidence or in the brief, the email, Your Honour, it's been referred to.
I know that it was shown to the officer. I'm
The-
sure that I can get clarification as to whether or not it's in the...
I don't think it is currently. There's no difficulty with adding it.
I'll just provide it and it can be tendered, but
That would be our next exhibit on the list. So that's an email, is it, dated?
I'm just trying to find it there, Your Honour. I've got it massive.
The officer has one, I think.
Oh,
Got that email
that
there.
one?
Oh, he's marked it though.
That's an email from
That's
Councillor 15 to my instructor,
Oh, okay.
in which we asked for what was asked. So maybe
Okay,
originally.
sorry, I'm confused.
I'll find it in a minute. I do have a copy here.
It will be exhibit 15 when following friend locates it.
And that's an email you received from Detective Superintendent Morgan on the 18th of of August, correct?
Correct.
And the next day you completed your statement the 9th.
Correct.
I don't think it was needs to be shown in the email, or we agree with what it is. Tend to that email. Now, just briefly in relation to your remote community experience, you've already told us you worked about 18 months in I think a total of 5 remote communities.
Correct.
And you've been very honest about your first impressions about landing in Kintore.
Correct.
It's fair to say you were shocked by the conditions.
Correct.
You wanted to stay on the home and return.
I would have liked, that's how I felt at that time.
But you stayed on.
I stayed on.
And you initially was to be a 2-week or 10-day stint, correct?
10 days, I put my hand up for a 10-day, I think someone was going on leave.
Yeah, and you ended up staying for 5 weeks.
Correct.
During that time, did you suffer an injury?
I don't know what it's called. I blew my ACL.
And you could have left the community, but you stayed on during...
I went to the clinic and got some painkillers and
you stayed.
stayed. I didn't want to leave.
All right. And you mentioned you're asked, I think you mentioned in your evidence working with Pete Stoller about at Kintore.
Correct.
And he's a man that you respected.
Very much so.
And you've mentioned also at Impapa and in Smith, you worked with him there?
A member.
In
Member, yeah. Correct.
And both he and Pete Stowers took you around and introduced you to elders and told you a little bit about the community.
Correct.
Apart from that, you didn't have any induction in relation to the other communities you worked in, correct?
No.
And you're asked in relation to Pete Stowers at Kintore. I think Council Assistant yesterday asked you whether he developed good relations with the Kintore community, and you'd agree he did.
A very good relationship, seemingly.
In terms of your working in remote communities, do you feel you develop good relationships with members of the community?
Yeah, I've got people in, like some, obviously I don't live here anymore, but you'd get called out to when you're in town sometimes. Folk coming into town. And
You've been asked some questions and you've been very candid in your statement and your evidence about the negative attitudes you've developed towards people who are drunk in public or public places or in Alice Springs.
Correct.
Do you feel that's ever affected the way you actually dealt with it, those people in the situation?
No, I don't think so.
No, am I right in assuming most of the situations would be you dealing with people that need to be taken into protective custody?
Working in the posse or the parley, whatever it's called now, the dealing with the bottle shops. It was just dealing with the people.
In relation to picking people up from the street and taking them into protective custody, what's the general process there?
Uplift them. DESA is the first port of call, home if they can. If there's no one there, then it would be DESA, which is where they rinse. What do you call it? They have to sleep for the night or sleep until they're sober. If you can't find any of those two, then it's the watch house.
And I guess there's some paperwork to prepare.
Yeah, you would do complete a health questionnaire, or the watch house staff would complete a health questionnaire, and you would do promise checks and.
So it's pretty routine stuff, I take it.
Pretty routine, yeah.
And was that during? I think you told us that you did about 3 years on point of sale duty.
I struggled to get off the posse. I kept getting put back on it, and so I think about 3 years.
And so I suppose it became fairly monotonous routine, working on the point of sale.
Every minute takes 90 seconds when you're standing outside a bottle shop.
In the final paragraph of your statement, you've been asked some questions about your comments there when you're asked, I think at question 11 of the email you received from Detective Superintendent Morgan, you're asked effectively whether you have any suggestions as to recommendations the coroner might make with respect to the prevention of future deaths in similar circumstances as Kumanjayi. I won't read the whole paragraph 11 of your email. And I don't need to read or have you read what you've committed to writing in the final paragraph of your statement. But is it fair, if I can put these to you, that what you're intending to express in paragraph 23 are these kinds of propositions? Firstly, you express the view that police are entitled to defend themselves from serious attacks, including stabbings, by the lawful use of their firearm, if the circumstances warrant.
Correct.
And that it would be wrong for the coroner to send a message which suggests that police are not entitled to lawfully defend themselves against serious attacks.
Correct.
And that is so regardless of the race of the individual who might be engaged in seriously attacking a police officer.
Correct.
And with regard to your comments in relation to Kumanjayi Walker, is that what you're essentially intending to convey, that Kumanjayi's race should not obscure the fact that the police involved in his arrest were entitled to lawfully defend themselves?
Correct.
And that's not to deny that the loss of Kumanjayi's life was a tragic matter,
No,
and that there may be lessons to be learned from that incident.
I believe so, yes.
Just finally, in relation to the incident involving the arrest of Cleveland Walker, where you were shown some video footage yesterday.
Yeah.
And that occurred, as we know, on the 1st of April at Anzac, 1st of April 2019 at Anzac Hill. And it was night time, about 7:30 p.m, correct?
Correct.
Now, we've seen on the video footage, when you go up the hill, you turn your video footage on as you're approaching the position of Constable Rolfe and
Correct.
Cleveland Walker on the hill. You get to the position, and then sometime after, we can see on the footage, you look like you're fumbling with your glasses.
Correct.
Recall that?
Yeah.
And then sometime after that, you say, "Oh, what the fuck?" And then
Correct.
sometime after that, you say, "Camera on," or something like that.
Correct.
Was the "oh, what the fuck" related to camera on, or did it relate to something else?
I'd lost my glasses.
Now, we can see on the footage that obviously Constable Rolfe had apprehended Cleveland Walker some way up the slope of Anzac Hill, is that right?
Pretty much down, it comes down, flattens out.
Right, but is it some way up the slope, or?
It's, there's, Your Honour, if you know the RSL building, we were close to that. We probably ran halfway into, well, we're beside the building, but halfway along the building, so maybe 20, 30 metres off the road, or?
Right, but correct me if I'm wrong, you and other police have remained at the bottom of the hill near the parked police vehicle?
Just Constable Rolfe and myself. The others were up the top of the hill.
Right. And at one point, Constable Rolfe had gone up the hill and apprehended Cleveland Walker?
Kind of. The town side, Cleveland had run up Anzac Hill and around, and then coming down towards the St Phillips, it's the big hill. And so Constable Rolfe and myself stayed down the bottom. There were police up the top. You could see the torches, and we stayed down the bottom. But basically, it was to get Cleveland to run down, and if we were going to find him, to come down to that spot where there were no torches, and that's basically what he did.
But we see on the footage that you were walking up towards the location where Constable Rolfe
Correct.
had
So,
Cleveland Walker.
yes,
What I'm asking you, were you down at the bottom of the hill near the police vehicles before you started walking up?
correct.
And had you had your body worn video on at the bottom of the hill before you started walking up, would it have been able to capture anything at the location where Constable Rolfe had apprehended?
No,
Walker?
I ran around trees and things, so it wouldn't have captured.
It was night time, of course.
Yeah.
Do these cameras have any sort of light on them to illuminate?
When the cameras are on, Your Honour, you push the button twice, and it's got a red light that flashes.
I don't mean that. I mean in terms of casting light in the darkness. If there's street lights on, I take it obviously there'll be light.
I don't think they have low light capability or anything like that. So.
And you've been asked some questions by counsel assisting yesterday that suggest that you've turned the camera on late. Do you agree that you turned the camera on late, or perhaps turned it on at the point when you were aware that Zach Rolfe had apprehended?
He'd been, yes, Constable Rolfe had Walker. I think I turned it on as I start running.
Do you agree with the proposition that you turned it on late?
Not really. No.
That's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Just very briefly, my learned friend just asked you some questions about when you received your summons to give evidence in this matter. Is that right? In this inquest, you received it by email. Is that right?
No. Superintendent Morgan came to my house.
And you were angry when you received it. Is that right?
Kind of lost my shit a little bit.
Okay. Why?
I don't know. I was angry.
You're still a member of the police force, aren't you?
I am.
How long had you been on leave for?
Maybe 4 months by that stage.
You accept that it was legal and lawful to provide you with a summons to give evidence?
I took the summons, yeah.
And you accept that it's important for you as a police officer to obey a lawful direction to give evidence in this court?
Yep.
And
yep.
you accept, do you, that it's important to be accountable for any actions that a police officer takes?
Yep.
The Code of Ethics, which is in front of me, I'm reading it to you, Clause 27, is that members must be receptive and responsive to lawful orders and instructions given by the Commissioner of Police or any person lawfully entitled to give such order or instruction. Do you respect that?
Yep.
Do you think it was appropriate for you to lose your shit when you're provided with a summons to give evidence to give in this court?
No, it doesn't lessen it, but I apologised for that later, not then.
You apologised to Superintendent Morgan, who had behaved towards you with great respect.
He'd done nothing wrong.
Thank you, nothing further.
We will adjourn to 9:30.
Your Honour.
Officer, you've been giving evidence now for a long period of time. You've been obviously subjected to a lot of questions and a lot of scrutiny. I know that's been difficult, but it's an important part of getting to the truth and ensuring that things are done properly and in the best way possible.
Thank you. Your Honour, before you rise, may I just raise a matter for tomorrow morning? I understand...
You're excused. I'll let you go now. So you
Thank you.
can go. Yes,
For a lot of reasons, I have to be on a plane at 11:45 tomorrow. I've raised with Councillor Assisting whether or not it would be possible, had we got part way through the next witness's evidence, or if it had not started, that I could examine at 9:30 and be able to leave in time to get on that plane. Councillor Assisting had no issue with that unless any other party had an issue. I just wanted to flag that because otherwise I have to make changes to my arrangements. Bearing in mind the order that...
And I hadn't had a chance to discuss it with Your Honour, but can I just say this to my learned friend because it might be relevant. It appears that I've just been provided with this information at short notice, obviously, in light of the late application made on behalf of Sergeant Bowens by Mr Sutner and Ms McNally. So perhaps I'll just read this onto the record. This afternoon, as Your Honour is aware, there was an originating motion served on the coroner's office by Ms McNally for Sergeant Bowens, and an order has been made by Justice Brownhill that follows that. The original order, I think, sought, or interlocutory relief sought, was that Sergeant Bowens not give evidence at all, but the orders ultimately made to this afternoon by Her Honour Justice Brownhill are that there is a hearing for 1 day listed on the 18th of November before Justice Brownhill in relation to an application on behalf of Sergeant Bowens, and parties are granted leave to appear by AVL. The interlocutory relief sought is that until close of business on the 18th of November,
the interlocutory relief sought that was granted was that until the 18th of November, an injunction restraining the defendant or counsel assisting, that is the coroner or counsel assisting, from calling the plaintiff, Sergeant Bowens, to answer questions on matters that could give rise to a claim for penalty privilege. So it appears that Sergeant Bowens will have to give evidence, or may have to give evidence twice in these proceedings. But Your Honour, subject to anything that Your Honour orders, I would suggest that Sergeant Bowens be called tomorrow morning as planned, that this inquest not be derailed in its mission to try and hear from witnesses in a timely, efficient and orderly fashion, and that families who are waiting to hear evidence from Sergeant Bowens about a range of matters have evidence heard from him tomorrow. That is likely to inconvenience everybody at this bar table, because Sergeant Bowens is likely to have to come back again then after the 18th of November, but subject, of course, to any application that's made and ultimately Her Honour's ruling. But I propose that he give evidence tomorrow.
Your Honour, I was aware of that ruling when I made the request. Two things, if I may just briefly finish. Sergeant Bowens was scheduled to give evidence yesterday and was moved at the request of his counsel. I'm not criticising that to today. Secondly, at the outset of this inquest, I indicated to Your Honour the limited resources we have, and Your Honour and counsel assisting thankfully indicated that you would accommodate our availability given our circumstances. And thirdly, I don't propose to ask any questions that touch on the issue of privilege, of penalty privilege. And I expect to be only very brief on two discrete issues.
Mr. Bowe, I'm declining to give you leave to go first tomorrow. We will try and fit in with your availability in relation to an opportunity to ask questions at an appropriate time.
Thank you.
It won't be first thing tomorrow.
Coroner, if I may just clarify three matters.
Sure, sorry, I haven't written down your name yet.
Ms. McNally.
Yes.
Counsel assisting mentioned that we'd filed our application too late. Rather startling submissions, given when I ran down to the Supreme Court, I was told I was too early. Secondly, when we were in the Supreme Court, Junior...
I'm not going to be assisted by commentary on the process. So if there is anything...
There is. In court, in front of a judge of the Supreme Court, the junior counsel informed Her Honour that my client was now not expected to give evidence for several weeks, a matter that I said was...
Look, if we need a transcript...
Your Honour, I've requested a transcript and I will bring a copy with me tomorrow. My client, we obtained the orders that we sought, which was that my client is happy to come here and give evidence, and the only issue is in relation to penalty privilege. So,
Sure.
Thank you.
So the proposal is, as I understand it, and in accordance with the orders that have been granted from the Supreme Court, that we will commence with Sergeant Bowen's evidence up until any point that an objection is taken in relation to the issues identified in the injunction.
Thank you, Your Honour.
We'll adjourn tonight.
Makes it easier. I don't have to prepare at the time.
Can I just ask Sergeant Bowen's counsel, or specifically, I'm not playing the words, I'm not sure what you say in South Australia. Perth. There has been any dealings with Sergeant Bowens previously concerning